Unless you've been living under a rock, if you followed the craft beer scene at all the last few years, you know all about the rise of the Hazy IPA. Called the haze craze, there are thousands of beer lovers absolutely addicted to these flavor-dense ales breweries can't seem to churn out fast enough. Starting from New England, this style of beers has swept across the country with the great fruit flavors they pack. Earlier this year, the Brewers Association finally formally acknowledged this trend by recognizing them as a separate style from IPAs and pale ales. This is a big deal, as the release of judging guidelines means all these beers now have their own separate categories in competitions like the Great American Beer Festival. But looking at these guidelines, there is a ton of vague language and frankly unhelpful descriptions, and that is the problem I want to understand today. Hey, this is Ryan with Beer by the Numbers, and I really enjoy a great hazy IPA. Not only do they pack a great flavor punch, but they make me feel better as my cloudy, crappy homebrews look similar to these professional and delicious beers. But besides boosting my inflated YouTuber ego, there is one thing that I do find frustrating about these beers: the complete lack of rules as to what counts as a hazy IPA. Are they supposed to be fruit-forward or really hoppy and bitter? Are they semi-transparent or totally opaque? Do they give a nice fluffy head, or are they too boozy and dense to support one? All these questions are generally what differentiates one style of beer from another. But no brewer or drinker can seem to answer these questions definitively. So today I want to go through the style guidelines released by the Brewers Association and maybe vent a little frustration. And let's talk about why pinning down this style has proven so difficult. Don't forget to leave a like on this video if you love talking about the haze craze. Alright, let's get started. I think the easiest way to dive into the world of hazy style guidelines is just to read straight off the Brewers Association website. To illustrate how confusing I find attempts to pin down the hazy IPA style, I want to compare it to another American ale style, the humble brown ale. Now, brown ales are a style that I think a lot of brewers and drinkers have a tough time describing. Aside from having a brown color, it's kind of tough to say what the average ABV, mouthfeel, or even malt profile should be for a brown ale. But if we look at the judging criteria from the Brewers Association website, we actually get a pretty detailed description of what American-style brown ale is. The color, it's deep copper to very dark brown. And this is pretty straightforward. Brown ales are brown, easy peasy. Clarity, chill haze is acceptable at lower temperatures. Now, this is a pretty standard term, especially for ales. Water isn't able to hold as many particles in suspension as its temperature goes down. As such, serving temperature drops, some particulate matter begins to flocculate and form a slight cloud in more flavorful ales. So the beer judging guidelines note that this might happen, so judges know it's due to the laws of physics as opposed to any flaw in brewing of that particular beer. Perceived malt and aroma. Roasted malt, caramel, and chocolate aromas and flavors should be medium. Boom. 3 easy to identify aromas that most people are able to at least describe, if not pick up, in a brown ale they would smell. Perceived hop aroma and flavor. Low to medium. Although this scale is somewhat subjective, the objective here is pretty clear. Not a lot of hops aromas should be coming off this beer. Perceived bitterness, medium to high. So to summarize these last 3 points, the beer should smell malty, have a nice malty flavor, and a moderately bitter bite. If you've never had a brown ale before, you can kind of get the idea just by these last 3 descriptions. Fermentation characteristics, low to medium low, fruity estery aromas and flavors may be present, diacetyl should not be perceived. Now, these descriptions are for how much flavor the yeast should be bringing to the party, and with these characteristics, judges should be looking for beers where yeast is not playing a starring role. That belongs to the malt in a brown ale. Body, medium. Again, balanced, not too light, not too heavy, just right, the Goldilocks of brown beers. All in all, it may be a challenge to describe a relatively simple style like an American brown ale, but this description does paint a pretty accurate picture of that brew. Now let's contrast that with the guidelines of the Hazy IPA. The Juicy or Hazy India Pale Ale. Now look, already I have a problem and I haven't even gotten to the description of the beer yet. Juicy or hazy. We can't even have a consistent name. There's an and or option here. You might think I'm really nitpicking right off the top, but trust me, this is really just the tip of the iceberg on this description. Color, straw to deep gold. Now, this seems actually like a fairly standard description, especially for IPAs and pale ales. Maybe a little wide, but nothing worse than, a golden ale or a different pale ale, so I think I'm gonna give it a pass here. Clarity, low to very high degree of cloudiness is typical of these beers. Starch, yeast, hops, protein, and or other compounds contribute to a wide range of hazy appearances within this category. Low to very high. Okay, let me show you what low to very high looks like on an objective brewing scale like SRM color. A low 3 is a nice golden color, while a high 29 is damn near black. How the hell am I supposed to determine a low to high degree of cloudiness? Is it just not allowed to be clear like light Pilsner? This sentence provides no real guidance, and the next sentence after it doesn't help anymore. Starch, yeast, hops, protein, and other compounds. Well, geez, why don't we just add fruit pulp and the saliva of a drooling beer nerd to the list? Not only do we have another and or statement, but we also get a ridiculous amount of categories. This style might as well be a Mad Lib fill-in-the-blank puzzle. Perceived malt aroma and flavor. Low to medium low malt aroma may be present. Alright, this line is actually pretty legit in the description, so I'm just gonna move on. Perceived hop aroma and flavor. Medium high to very high hop aroma and flavor are present with attributes typical to hops of any origin. Any origin? Old World hops? Sure. New World American hops? Absolutely. New Zealand hops? Alright. Experimental hops? Why not? Hops created in the forge of Vulcan, given to the god Mars, who put them in a meteorite and hurled it down towards Earth and crashed into the icy crevasses of Antarctica, only to be discovered by Sir Ernest Shackleton? Those are allowed too. Perceived bitterness. Medium low to medium. Fine. Fermentation characteristics. Low to medium fruity estery aroma and flavor may be present, but are usually overwhelmed by hops and fruitiness. Diacetyl should not be perceived. Alright, just another little bit of gray area to add to this pile in this description. Body, medium low to medium high. Perceived silky or full mouthfeel may contribute to the overall flavor profile. Just more maybes and kindas or whatever, I get beer can be a cool, almost artistic statement, allowing a brewer a lot of opportunity to create something new or unique to brew. But beer judging and style guidelines are a bit of a technical process, and in that regard, I think these guidelines are a failure. When you go from low to high cloudiness and basically specify that anything can cause the cloudiness in that beer, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. That basically describes any homebrew I make. It's all a different hazy IPA. Maybe that's the key. I can make great hazy IPAs. And you can make great hazy IPAs. We can all make great hazy IPAs. And maybe I myself am one form of a great hazy IPA. And fog is hazy in nature. So maybe that makes everything in the world one great big hazy IPA.
Well guys, it looks like the haze craze finally drove Ryan insane. Hopefully he'll be back next week with another great beer video, but until then, he wanted me to remind you to like and subscribe below. So, cheers, I guess!